What character and hope can only be reaped on the other side of suffering long in love? Welcome to Monday. Patience. This is virtue number 40, and that number matters more to me than some people may realize. So I strategically wanted to marry it to this virtue of patience as we step into framing it, exploring it, trying to wrestle with what it means to us. And then off the hinges, we will dive deep with a dear guest that I'll be hosting. But 40 is not accidental. Let me give you a little snapshot of what it means to me, the way I read it, as my faith is informed by scripture. So 40 days and 40 nights of rain. Noah and his family wait patiently inside the ark for a promise while they are being protected. But there is some pain, there is some doubt, there is confusion. 40 years of wandering in the wilderness after Israel was freed from slavery in Egypt. That same nation of Israel, you can look at David and Goliath. There were 40 days of Goliath testing and tempting and taunting the nation of Israel. 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. That was Jesus. And he was tested and tempted of Satan prior to his crucifixion on the cross. So there's so many examples. You could look at this on Google or GPT or whatever platform you want to look at. Or you could just go read it if you had the patience to do it and see for yourself and pull out the threads of this number throughout biblical stories and history. But I'll save you some time and just let you know that 40 marks a threshold, a generation, a season. It marks the fullness of time. The season that's required and the patience that's associated to that before transformation can take form. It's long, it's costly, and the only way to what lies on the other side is through it. And there's a reason that I'm saying this to you right now with some pregnant pauses, because in our culture, everything is about being efficient, effective, expeditious, quick. I want my answers now. But this is the space where patience is no longer theoretical. Mental, physical, spiritual, suffering long. Those things are not an option if we really want the transformation that lies on the other side of them. Patience, the way I frame it through scripture that I read, is not passive waiting or avoidance. It is long suffering, or some may translate that as perseverance or endurance. They mean generally the same thing. It's a chosen path informed by faith and prudence. And often it's quiet and a costly journey that refuses to let pain have the final word. So, for most of my adult life, I have lived inside of that space, inside of, let's call it, my 40. For 24 years, I've carried parts of my story quietly, not because they didn't matter, not because they didn't hurt, but the timing mattered. The timing was everything. And the weight was not light, but love demanded me to suffer long. After walking through just one of my experiences and seeing my response to it, a good friend of mine years ago, almost 20 years ago, looked at me half joking and said, "Man, you have the patience of Job." And I took that to heart. That stuck with me. His name was Petey. And as I prepared to record this, I returned to the book of Job. I read it, the whole thing, this morning. That's the beauty of not getting much sleep. I can study a lot. And what struck me as I reread those words was not the catalog of suffering in the opening chapters. And that's a lot to deal with for any man. But what struck me was the prolonged silence. 37 chapters where God says nothing. And he allows Job to endure. But Job remains. And then, one question by Job, God finally speaks. And here's the thing, it wasn't gentle. It was from a storm. And listen to these words he says to him. He says, "Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. Job is put firmly in his place in love, and his response is simple and devastatingly honest. Listen to what Job says in return. I am nothing. How could I ever answer you? I will cover my mouth with my hand. I've said too much already. I have nothing more to say. If you fast forward in Scripture to Romans 5, it tells us that suffering produces patience. Patience produces character, and character produces hope. So hope is anchored somewhere deeper than circumstance. That sequence matters. Character is not formed in certainty, and hope isn't born in comfort. They're cultivated slowly, often through suffering long, when faith has nothing left to lean on except the object of its trust. Job, through some painful experiences, understood this. He didn't receive answers first. He received the ability to endure. And through that endurance, his faith was refined, not erased. So suffering long, or patience, it does not define us by what we endure. It reveals the object of our trust while enduring. And that distinction, to me, is everything as we frame this. So as we step together into this virtue, I want to be clear about something. The purpose of patience is not to make suffering or trauma a part of our identity. The purpose is to allow suffering or trauma or what you have had to go through patiently to point beyond you and beyond me, to who and what remain when everything else is stripped away. This coming up weekend in Substack, after I drop the episode with Ryan, I am going to write something to my daughters. Words and stories of combat, trauma, and suffering I have carried for nearly a quarter century of my life, my whole adulthood. And it's not to make pain the centerpiece of my story, but to help them understand that love, steadiness, and safety that they experience in my character and in my presence, all of that has been forged through patience, through suffering long in the purest form and effort to love. And the fullness of time matters. And that brings us back to where we began. What character and hope can only be reaped on the other side of suffering long in love? Ryan and I cannot wait to dive deep into this virtue with you and take the vault off the hinges on Friday. But first, you must wait. You must be patient. So what are you going to do in the space between? Are you going to even listen to this and try to grapple with and answer the question honestly? Will you be patient? Maybe patience isn't weakness. Maybe it's a love that stays, a faith that holds, and a hope that endures on the other side of a transformative character that can't be built by avoiding or sidestepping. It can only be built by walking through. I'll see you on Friday. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Power of Framing. Follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platform, where I'll meet you on Wednesday and you can ask me anything you want. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.